All right, so give it to me. How are Republicans responsible?
Because they could end this right now. They are choosing to make this issue of the shutdown an issue where they pit the sick against the hungry. The reality is this is a false choice. We don't need to be here. Prior to this moment, we've been able to afford both the ACA subsidies and SNAP benefits for 42 million Americans. So you have to ask yourself, why are we here? And the reality is that the Republicans passed their one big beautiful bill. They cut $1 trillion from healthcare. That included 17 million people worth of Medicaid benefits.
In today's video, Brian Tyler Cohen destroys Chris Cuomo on News Nation. What starts as a calm discussion about the government shutdown quickly turns into a fiery exchange when Brian calls out Cuomo's double standard on accountability and fiscal responsibility. As millions of Americans face real consequences from the shutdown, from lost SNAP benefits to halted childcare support, Brian exposes how conservative talking points often ignore the human cost behind the political games. Cuomo tries to hold his ground, but the facts just aren't on his side this time. So let's dive in and watch how Brian Tyler Cohen shuts down Chris Cuomo on News Nation.
All right, so give it to me. How are Republicans responsible?
Because they could end this right now. They are choosing to make this issue of the shutdown an issue where they pit the sick against the hungry. The reality is this is a false choice. We don't need to be here. Prior to this moment, we've been able to afford both the ACA subsidies and SNAP benefits for 42 million Americans. So you have to ask yourself, why are we here? And the reality is that the Republicans passed their one big beautiful bill. They cut $1 trillion from healthcare. That included 17 million people worth of Medicaid benefits, and they also cut $350 billion worth of SNAP benefits. So if you're wondering how we got here, it's because we're dealing with a Republican Party that has full control of government, House, Senate, White House, and their priority is not to continue these programs, it is expressly to cut them. That's why they did it. Don't listen to what they say, just watch what they do.
Okay. I will talk to you about the policies, and I don't disagree with the needs and what should be priorities, but that's why you have elections. And Trump won, and the debt and the deficit were huge problems, and health care is something that is seen as having a lot of fat to it. Do I agree? No. But that is why they picked these things. Now, you leave something out. We are where we are because of your party. The Senate won't give the votes on the Democratic side to get past the filibuster for reconciliation. That is why the government shut down. It is not a question. That is a fact.
Nor should they. And you want to talk about what the American people voted for? It was Trump and Republicans who said that they were going to protect earned benefit campaign trail. There's no deficit spending getting under control right here. They blew the deficit up.
Look, listen, again, here's the debatable point. They say no. The tax cuts drove the economy. The first administration was much better than Biden's economy. Of course, he had the pandemic, but that's how the cookie crumbles. You got to deal with what happens on your watch, and that's why they want the tax cuts. I don't agree. But here is your problem, Brian Tyler Cohen. You are fighting the right fight, in my opinion. This is righteous. The subsidies are needed, and they wouldn't even be needed as much if so many red states didn't play politics and refused to expand Medicaid when they had the chance. And I have two ideas. The first one is right fight, wrong way, wrong battleground. Shutting down the government, and Schumer is a terrible messenger for you guys because everybody knows he did it. He doesn't want to make a deal right now because he thinks this pain is working for him. But this was the wrong way to have the right fight. And you can say this is the only leverage we had. I don't agree. You got to find a better way to have the debate than this.
It is the only leverage we have.
What's really interesting about this exchange between Brian Tyler Cohen and Chris Cuomo is how it exposes the broader tension between political rhetoric and economic reality. Chris tries to frame the government shutdown and spending cuts as inevitable consequences of fiscal responsibility, but that argument just doesn't hold up when you look at the data. For one, Brian's right to point out the hypocrisy behind calling for deficit control while pushing trillion-dollar tax cuts for the wealthy. The Congressional Budget Office itself confirmed that Trump's 2017 tax cuts added nearly $1.9 trillion to the national debt, and most of those benefits went to corporations and high-income earners, not the middle class. If this were truly about tightening the belt, we'd see equal concern for corporate loopholes, not just cuts to healthcare or food assistance. And let's talk about the SNAP and Medicaid cuts. The Department of Agriculture projected that the SNAP rollbacks would affect over 40 million Americans, many of whom are seniors, veterans, and working families. It's not just a budget issue, it's a lifeline issue. Meanwhile, states that refuse to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act have left millions uninsured, driving up hospital closures in rural areas and shifting costs back to taxpayers. So when Cuomo says Democrats picked the wrong battlefield, it misses the point. Sometimes the only way to stop a harmful policy is to take a stand, even if it's politically costly. Because at the end of the day, fiscal conservatism without compassion isn't leadership, it's negligence disguised as discipline.
The reality is that Democrats are in the minority in the House.
You'll never get what you want. You'll never get it. Nobody has ever ended a shutdown getting what they want. It doesn't happen because all we would have is shutdowns.
This is the only instance where the Democrats could put forward any leverage whatsoever. The vast majority of the American people are behind them. Like I said, 8 in 10 Americans agree that Congress should extend these ACA subsidies. And the reality is the Democrats are trying to save Republicans from themselves. You had just mentioned these ACA subsidy extensions. In the last 5 years, the states that have adopted the ACA enrollment have largely been Republican states. We're talking Texas, Florida, West Virginia, Tennessee. The pain is going to be felt among Republican constituents. So at this point, the Republicans really, I mean, it's win-win for them to relent here and come to the negotiating table. But Democrats would be fools, Chris. Democrats would be absolute fools to surrender what little leverage they have and just take Republicans at their word when they say, hey guys, we'll totally, definitely negotiate with you. All we ask is that you surrender all your leverage, open up the government, and then come sit down with us, the people who just cut $1 trillion from healthcare.
Look, I'm with you, except for a couple of things. One is shutdown should be illegal. You're putting the pain on everybody else in the interest of making things better for everybody else. I think it's a mixed message. I don't think it plays for you guys as well as you think. The second thing is this. Fetterman says he trusts Thune to have negotiations. We'll see if he's right or wrong.
Let me ask you a question on that. Let me ask you a question on that point.
Hold on. Let me give you my answer, and then you ask your question, and you get the last word. Cool. Here's the deal. We need the subsidies. Everybody wants the subsidies. You know they want the subsidies, Mr. and Mrs. Republican. I give you the reimbursements issue. You decide, Republicans, what states get reimbursed for giving emergency care to undocumented immigrants. Here, I give it to you. You decide the reimbursement rate, and you own it. I'm giving you that issue. It is not about giving illegals, that ugly word, a free health care. Here, you can have it. I want the subsidies. Present that to the American people, you win all day long. You won't do it. I don't know why.
Brian Tyler Cohen and Chris Cuomo really cuts into one of the biggest political contradictions we keep seeing. Republicans claim to care about fiscal responsibility and working class Americans, yet they continuously block or undermine programs that actually help those very voters. And Brian's absolutely right. Most of the states that benefit the most from Affordable Care Act subsidies and Medicaid expansion are Republican-led. We're talking Texas, Florida, West Virginia, Tennessee, places where hospital closures have skyrocketed and medical debt is crushing families because state leaders refuse to expand healthcare coverage. The data is clear. Since the ACA subsidies were introduced, uninsured rates dropped dramatically nationwide. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, over 78% of Americans, including a majority of Republicans, support keeping these subsidies in place. That's not a partisan talking point. That's national consensus. Yet GOP lawmakers continue to treat healthcare as a bargaining chip instead of a human right. And Chris's argument that shutdowns should be illegal misses a key point. Democrats aren't holding the government hostage for personal gain. They're using the only leverage available to protect healthcare access for millions. If Republicans were negotiating in good faith, this wouldn't even be necessary. The real mixed message here isn't from the Democrats. It's from a Republican Party that claims to defend American families while cutting the very safety nets those families rely on. At the end of the day, this isn't just a budget debate. It's about moral priorities. And right now, only one side is fighting for the people most affected by this shutdown.
But I'll give you a last word. Go ahead.
Yeah. So on this idea that the Republicans can come forward and ask for the Democrats to relent, just open up the government and then we'll sit down with you. That's apparently what John Fetterman is saying that he takes John Thune at his word for. It goes the other way. Why not just sit down with the Democrats today, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, hammer out a deal to extend these ACA subsidies? Hammer out a deal to extend these ACA subsidies, and then you open up the government. Look, the Democrats are all on board. All they're asking for with what little leverage they have is to extend the ACA subsidies. They're not asking for the sun and the moon here. They're not asking, to extend, like, this isn't Green New Deal. There's no poison pills. It is something that, again, has the vast majority of support across the country among both Democrats and Republicans.
It does. But not this way. Not this way. Nobody said shut down the government to do it. And you got hooked up on that illegals health care, horrible poison pill.
There is no. You and I both know that there is not a dime of federal funding that goes toward undocumented health care.
So give it to them.
Sure. I mean, that's not even up for debate. And the reality is they know it's not up for debate. They know that they're acting in bad faith. But I'm saying instead of surrendering the leverage that we have, ask these Republicans to come to the negotiating table right now. If they're acting in good faith when they say that they of course want to make a deal on ACA subsidies, do it right now. There's time today.
They will not reward the shutdown. They won't reward the shutdown because then the minority always does it. They have to pass a law that shutdowns are illegal, and then you can get into this. But I appreciate your policy points. I think you guys are fighting the right fight.
The Republicans should do that with the capital they have. But until then, this is it.
I got to jump. I love having the discussion. Let's have more of them, even though, man, you put me to shame. Not the arguments, the facial hair. It's killing me. I can't even look at you. You're too handsome. You're too young. Brian Tyler Cohen, thank you very much for debating it.
This part really exposes one of the biggest political games Republicans keep playing, demanding Democrats negotiate in good faith while refusing to actually show up to the table. Brian Tyler Cohen hits the core issue here. If Republicans truly cared about ending the shutdown and helping Americans, they'd be negotiating right now, not waiting until Democrats cave. Historically, this is nothing new. We've seen it with the 2013 government shutdown over Obamacare, and again during the 2018 standoff over immigration. Both times, Republicans stalled and blamed Democrats, only to backtrack once the political and economic fallout hit their own base. Let's also be real about this illegals getting free healthcare narrative that Chris Cuomo echoes. It's not just misleading, it's factually false. Federal law, specifically the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, EMTALA, requires hospitals to treat anyone in an emergency situation, regardless of citizenship. But that's not the same as giving free healthcare. Undocumented immigrants actually contribute billions in taxes each year, around $12 billion annually, according to the IRS. Yet they're ineligible for most federal benefits, including ACA subsidies. So when Republicans bring up this talking point, it's purely political theater. And the irony is rich. The very people hurt most by this shutdown, rural communities, low-income families, and workers dependent on SNAP or healthcare subsidies, are in states that largely vote Republican. So when Brian says Democrats shouldn't surrender their leverage, he's exactly right. This isn't about partisanship. It's about holding the line for millions of Americans who stand to lose the most if the GOP keeps treating governance like a campaign stunt. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing, and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.